One reaction with Levy, and today we have a special guest. I think he could be the next Joe Davis, in my opinion. Lived with him over the summer. He is the man at Vanderbilt right now, a junior, going abroad next semester, but we got him here December 8th here on a Friday before I think it's week 14, week 13 of the NFL. I'm not really, week 13 or week 14 of the NFL.
14.
But let's roll through this with my main man, Jonah Barbin. Jonah, how you doing today?
Levy, it's an absolute pleasure to be on here with you. Obviously, we lived together over the summer, did a lot of stuff together there. We would sit at the table, call NFL games together. We're talking breakfast, dinner, lunch, anytime in between. We're talking sports. So the fact that we get to be back together here, nice day in December, both studying for finals and talk about sports, beautiful thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a break, right? Working hard during the day, during the week. Got finals next week for me. I'm sure you have finals as well. We take a little break. We'll talk some sports. Let's start with the big one. Our Yankees, we had to suffer together, right? This past year. They went 82-80. They were out of the playoffs real early, probably by the end of our trip in July and August. It was like, we're done. Yankees are out. They make the move. They go get Juan Soto. It feels like the Mecca, the evil empire is back. Jonah, give me your thoughts, because my opinion is this is what the Yankees needed to do. If Brian Cashman was going to save his job, Aaron Boone, he had to go make a move, and this was the move. He's a generational talent.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let's start with the unprecedentedness, I believe that's the word, of the situation. How often is a talent like Juan Soto on the market? And the answer is really never. We've never seen this. First of all, a guy, when he was 19 years old, right? We're talking about him in the MLB as perhaps the best player at that age we had ever seen. This guy was a world champion with the Nationals, then goes to San Diego, right? Has one kind of down year by his standards, but still really good. And last year, the numbers jacked back up like 38 home runs, 275, something like that. So the fact that this guy is on the market, somebody had to go out and get him. I didn't want him to rot in San Diego. I honestly do not believe in what they're building there necessarily. So the Yankees finally go out and get their guy. And let me tell you, the package is big. The package is really big, but it was going to have to be. So they gave up, it's a 7-player deal. The Yankees gave up a lot of pitching, mainly Michael King and Drew Thorpe. But if you look at the guys that they held on to get a guy like Juan Soto, they held on to Spencer Jones. They held on to Jason Dominguez, and they held on to Anthony Volpe. So to keep those three together, be able to bring Juan Soto in, and now you have two of the three best hitters in the MLB, in my mind, in Aaron Judge and Juan Soto. The other one, I don't know, you might say on advanced metrics, it's Ohtani, Yordan Alvarez, but whatever. You have two top 5 hitters for sure now. That outfield gets a whole new dimension, and we're going to talk about the dynamics of that outfield because they also acquired Alex Verdugo, and we can talk about what we think about that, but I want to hear your Juan Soto thoughts. I think for the package that they gave, I know there's a risk because it's a rental, right? Because Juan Soto is a Scott Boras client, and Scott Boras clients do not sign extensions. Scott Boras, his mindset, his thesis is we are going to be better off if 30 teams are bidding for you instead of one team. And Juan Soto's a guy who's probably going to get $60 million next offseason per year. I don't think that's an overstatement. But I think after 1 year, Levy, I think after 1 year in New York and seeing what this team is about, a team that is all in to win in 2024, like you said, they're not done yet, and we'll talk about that too. I think he will be sold on being a New York Yankee and signing a long-term deal.
You think? So I think when you look at this deal, right, like why did it happen now? I think number one, we talked about it. San Diego they were in their financial hell, right? They have this deal with the Diamond Sports Group that just went awry, and they really don't have a TV deal. They went after these guys. They went after all of these guys, Soto, Tatis, paying all these guys, and they couldn't afford it. So they had to make the move. And at first glance, right, that the rumor was, okay, he's not going to go for a lot. It's a 1-year rental. And the Yankees said, and this is classic. The reason why I get so excited is because it felt like classic Yankees. It was like the evil empire, as I said in the beginning. It's back. It's like the Mecca of baseball. You go get the best player. And I'm sure when Brian Cashman was trying to save his job in the fall, right? Once they were terrible this year and they didn't make the playoffs, what was this pitch to Hal Steinbrenner? It had to involve, we're going to go get Juan Soto. We're going to try to go get Yamamoto, and we're going to run this thing really back and make New York, the Yankees, the Mecca of baseball. It's enough with Steve Cohen spending the money. Hal Steinbrenner, we're going to spend the money. And that had to be his pitch, right? Because I don't know how the Yankees go through this offseason without making a big move. This was the only move to make. And that's just the conclusion I keep going back to. Were they bidding against themselves? I would tend to think so. But, you compare this cross sport, right? Aaron Rodgers this summer, right, with the Jets. I kind of look towards the same thing going for this guy. The difference between Soto and Rodgers, one guy's in his prime, one guy is 40. I feel like it's kind of a similar thing. I know it's free agency versus trades, but it felt like a similar type of vibe. A New York team going all in, desperate team. I thought the Yankees were. They were definitely desperate, but I think this was the only move they had to make, and they did it. And that's the big thing.
Yeah. And I mean, let's not overthink it. This is like Kevin Durant getting traded when he was 24, 25 years old. I mean, I don't think, like, if we want to take cross-sport comparisons, because like you said, Aaron Rodgers at the end of his career being dished is a very different vibe. This is a guy who we probably have not seen the best of yet, and especially in Yankee Stadium. And I know that's the flavor of the week to say, but it is really true. Now, I want to caution this. Everybody's saying Soto's going to feast off that right field wall, and I hope he does. But the worst times in his career, Levy, is when he gets pull happy. When he's hitting the most percentage of his balls to right field is when he's striking out, is when that on-base percentage dips a little bit. And this is a guy who knows how to get on base better than anybody in the MLB, which is, the classic Moneyball stat. Does the guy get on base? And Juan Soto does. So if Juan Soto can hit to all fields, and he's already hit Oppo home runs at Yankee Stadium. I've been watching a thread of all his Yankee Stadium home runs so far. He can spread the ball across the field, and it'll naturally go over that right field wall. And then you talk about that murderer's row in this lineup. You got Judge batting second, Soto batting third, and then you got probably Rizzo at 4, and then Stanton at 5. That could be a real murderer's row if those two can stay healthy. And the other big thing is finally Scott Boras will be happy. Do you know he was pissed that Juan Soto was batting second in San Diego? So an even better fit to stay with the Yankees. You get that number 3 spot for the next 10 years. Because
you think it's Soto at 2, or you think he's at 3?
I think Judge is staying at 2. The Yankees
really?
love this. They love this Aaron Judge at 2. And then you think about it. So then Judge, you go righty, lefty.
You think I would think, see, my thought was you put Judge at 3 because Soto gets on base so much. If he's on base, right, Judge could just, I don't know. And then if you want to stack it lefty, righty, that feels like if you're going to put Rizzo at 4,
because
Soto
then you could put the lefty Rizzo at 4 and then Stanton at 5. The projected lineups I'm seeing right now, I think Soto is going to be their 3 hitter. I think they just really like it's twofold, right?
Okay.
I'm telling you, Boras, I've never seen an agent who has his hands more all over teams and controls everything. He hated the fact that Soto batted second. Juan Soto is a 3 hitter. He should be in that 3 hole. And Aaron Judge has been the 2 hitter for how long now? Multiple years. He had the MVP season when he was the 2 hitter. The Yankees love their analytics, and the analytics say that if Aaron Judge bats in the 2 spot, right, he will get, I don't know, 50 more at-bats the entire season, or 40 more at-bats, whatever it adds game by game, just by being a little higher in the lineup. And then I think the Yankees are betting a lot on DJ LeMahieu to go back to what he's been at the 1 slot.
So that was my next question, right? You look at this lineup, I think durability is the biggest thing, because it's still, aside from Juan Soto coming in, it's a very old lineup. I mean, you have LeMahieu, Rizzo, Stanton. These are old dudes. They're old. And I know Soto brings in that young versatility that's needed, but that's still an old lineup. And then you put Aaron Judge at center field. There are questions about, can the body handle that position? Are you concerned about the durability?
I'm not concerned about the lineup, really, and we can talk about that in a second, but I'm super concerned about the outfield.
Okay.
So you move Judge to center, and you're making yourself worse multifacetedly. Judge is a good center fielder, but he's a great right fielder, plus right fielder. So you take that talent out of right field, you put him in center, you're worried about the durability there. Then you bring in Verdugo, who is not a good outfielder. And then you put Verdugo in left, so you've got a problem there in left. And then you put Soto in right, who will be fine. Uh, I'm very concerned about that. And you know what, Levy, you talk about this deal. The other thing that people aren't talking about, they also got Trent Grisham in the deal, which I thought was a critical part of this deal. He's a good outfielder, and he's a guy that you can plug in there defensively. To be honest with you, I did not love the Verdugo deal. I saw the Verdugo deal and I kind of cringed. I think they got a good trade with the Red Sox, right? But first of all, that gives me pause because I say, why would Boston let the guy go to New York, a team that they play 19 times a year, if he's really this talent? He's had kind of these off the field issues. He's not hustling. Alex Cora had to pull him aside multiple times. As I said, not a great defender, never really panned out to the guy we thought he would be. Now you throw him in left field, and you've kind of got this issue where you have too many outfielders because Dominguez is coming back. And you're going to keep Soto and right. I mean, what are you doing out there? You're getting defensively a little bit worse in my mind.
So Verdugo, I just looked it up. I thought I heard this too. He was nominated for a Gold Glove last year, so it's not like he's a poor defender.
Well, but he is not a great left fielder. He's really not. He's had a lot of issues in left field. And I mean, they feel that he could be a liability out here. That's what everybody is saying. If he's in left.
It's right. I think Dominguez definitely helps second half of the year, but I do think, is that part of the reason why they included Trent Grisham? Like, we need a defensive center fielder.
Yeah, I think getting a guy like that, and I think also the concern with Verdugo talking about his fielding is that you wouldn't want to put him in center, right? Like he can't go in center. So that forces Judge to be in center because obviously Juan Soto is not going to be your center fielder. So I do have concerns about the outfield. However, the lineup I feel really good about now, right? Top to bottom, probably projected lineup at this point. LeMahieu at 1, Judge at 2, Soto at 3. 4, you got Rizzo. 5, you got Stanton. 6, Verdugo. 7, Torres. 8, Wells probably, and 9, Volpe. That's a really good lineup, 1 to 9.
It is. I just think there's the question of, can this lineup stay together? We have seen for multiple years now, these guys get hurt, right? And it's still the same, LeMahieu, they're betting on him coming back to his normal self. He's only had one good year, really awesome year with the Yankees. It feels like he's kind of tailing down a little bit. Rizzo got hurt last year. I don't know how good he's going to be going forward. He's an older type of player. Is there, is a Torres trade, in the works? That's something I was reading as well, like to kind of spice things up because you still have the same guys. And if Judge or Stanton get hurt, which we've seen in the past, then it comes back to that same old problem, everything around 1 or 2 guys.
Yeah, I mean, I would hold on to Torres. Honestly, I would say if Dominguez comes back and is the guy that we know that he is, I would try to flip Verdugo for a pitcher. This is not the Verdugo hate session. Like I said, like he played well in right field. He was a Gold Glove nominee, but again, he's not going to be in right field anymore. Left field's a completely different animal. Like we talked about, same thing with Giancarlo Stanton, right? In right field, pretty serviceable. In left field, whole different animal. And so if I could get Dominguez in center and then bounce out Judge back to right and put Soto in left, that's what I would do. And this team needs pitching because Levy, what is the pitching on this
That's
staff
what I was just about to ask.
It's Garrett Cole and everyone else. Who's your number 2 starter? Is it Nestor Cortez? Cortez, if you recall, was dealing with injuries a decent amount at the end of the season, and he never got corrective surgery. I forget what specific injury he was dealing with. Yeah, we could look that up. So how is he going to bounce back? We got Carlos Rodon, who I still believe in because I don't think that talent evaporates so quickly. You look at the season that he had before he came to New York, right? This has always been a guy who struggled with injuries, and he struggled with injuries again last year and was terrible when he was on the mound. But I do not believe that talent evaporates that quick. So I think Rodon is a guy who could really contribute for the Yankees down the stretch, and they're going to need him to contribit down the stretch. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if you sign Yamamoto, then this rotation starts to get a little spicier. But remember, you traded a couple guys in that deal too. Vasquez and Brito also went by the wayside in that deal. So the Yankees parted ways with a lot of pitching in this Padres deal. So that does give me pause going forward. And your bullpen got weakened. You just dealt Michael King, who honestly could be one of the best relievers in the MLB for the next couple of years.
He was always going to be a starter. I think the question is, can he hold up in terms of the number of innings? He's never done it in his career. I think, Yamamoto, it feels like if the Yankees get him, obviously some, those rotational concerns go awry. But if that doesn't work, because who knows, right? Who knows if the Yankees get him? What would be your plan if you're Brian Cashman? Are you going after Montas once again? Are there a couple other pitchers that you like? What would be your plan if you're Cashman?
It's interesting. I'm not going after Montas.
You don't like
After
Montas,
what
okay?
I it's not that I don't like him. I do think he can be better than he was, but I think that's brutal. I think the guy that you want to come back to is Jordan Montgomery. Texas, he's said he has been open to coming back. I really don't think there's bad blood there. There's no bridges burned necessarily. And Texas, I'm seeing reports that they're probably not going to re-sign him. I think they just had something with like a TV deal or something as well, where their money is not looking fantastic. And Montgomery's going to command a lot on this market. Obviously, a World Series champion, was critical in that postseason run for the Rangers. So he's a guy I would look to bring back to New York. I think he could be a legitimate number 2, number 3 starter in this rotation. I think I wouldn't be surprised if the Yankees went after Yamamoto and him. I'm getting the sense that the Yankees are spending a ridiculous amount of money this offseason. Hal has no reservations. This really does seem like, as you said, the evil empire, the George Steinbrenner Yankees are back. I think finishing 82-80 got this team to really panic a little bit. Hal, Brian, everybody there. And what a departure we've seen in Brian Cashman. He was up there dropping F-bombs, telling everybody, we know what we're doing. And it was reeking of the fact that they were going to trade for a guy like Alex Verdugo and sign Cody Bellinger and say that's all we needed. And they have changed. And Brian Cashman got up there after the Juan Soto deal and said, we're doing this for all the fans and we want to be the best team. We want to be the evil empire and we're not done. And that, my friend, is the rhetoric we've been missing in Yankee Nation.
It's huge. And I think it really comes down to the owner, right? Hal Steinbrenner, he's been scared to go over that tax, the Steve Cohen tax. And it feels like this year could be the year. If you had to bet, before we move on to football, if you had to bet, what is the starting rotation opening day for the New York Yankees? Is Yamamoto a New York Yankee?
Ooh. Yes, Yamamoto will be a Yankee. I can answer your question on that front. I really think it's down to 2 teams. I really do. I really think it's a battle of New York right now. I think it's the Yankees and the Mets, and we know Steve Cohen's going to bid a whole lot, but I don't know why Yamamoto would go to the Mets right now. I really don't. They're a rebuilding team, right? They might not be. I think they're kind of. It's a weird. Maybe they're a reloading team because I don't think they're going to compete this year, but in 24, I think they'll be very competitive, or not 24, 25 rather, right? We're already talking about the 24 season. That's crazy to think about. I think what I'd be scared of, I think Steve Cohen sitting back and saying, look at what Cashman just did. He just traded some great prospects to San Diego and some great players. He traded King for Soto, just for us to come in and offer Soto $70 million next offseason and try to get him to cross town. That would be the worst case scenario. And then you've completely failed the trade. That's the pressure now that you've put on this season. Because if Soto walks, Levy, there's only one scenario in which the trade was worth it. And that's the Yankees are hoisting their 28th World Series championship at the end of this year.
Right.
If they win the World Series this year and Soto signs with the Mets for $70 million, you still would do that trade 10 out of 10 times. Because we need to win a World Series. It is a desperate thing right now. If Aaron Judge is not a World Series champion in New York, I'd prefer if he has 5 rings, right? But if he doesn't have at least one, because we've always talked about this, Brian Cashman's statement has been, we want to win rings, not a ring. But to win rings, you need to start with a ring. So let's get that going. So I don't know what the exact rotation is looking like. I think Clark Schmidt's probably going to be in there as your 5 guy. Hopefully Cortez and Rodon can be essential pieces. So I guess it would be Cole, Yamamoto, Rodon at 3, Cortez at 4, and Schmidt at 5, if I had to guess.
That's a pretty good rotation. I mean, Cortez at 4, he's a good pitcher still. And it's a rotator cuff. They're saying he's throwing. Winter program just starting today. He kind of had a honeymoon wedding this offseason. So hopefully he's back to his same old self, and that would be awesome for New York. All right, let's move on because, well, baseball it's kind of close, right? You hear the winter meetings, you get excited. It's still the off season. We are
The
heading
offseason.
into, and this feels like we were just talking about this before the podcast. Once it gets to this week, right? College football is done. Right on Saturdays until the college football playoff, until you get to see my Michigan Wolverines in the Rose Bowl versus Alabama. But this is like the time where the NFL just like it starts on Thanksgiving, and now it's like early December, and we start getting the Saturday games next week. Everything's starting to heat up, and oh boy, we got a dandy this week. We've got Bills Chiefs and the Cowboys Eagles. I mean, could you ask for anything better?
No, the fact that you could sit down and listen to Romo and Nance, right? And then you get some DoorDash, bring the wings to the table, and then straight into Tarico Collinsworth for Eagles Cowboys. Are you kidding me, Levy? I know what we're doing on Sunday.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. It'll be awesome. And, we could start with these two games because it's just going to be just amazing to watch these two teams. I look at this Bills-Chiefs game, right? Bills have gotten, right, since that loss against Philly, I had Buffalo. I thought they were going to win that game. They were up 10 at some points. It felt like they were the better team. They couldn't close it out. But they've gotten a lot of breaks over this bye, excluding the Sean McDermott speech that I don't even want to get into. They've gotten a lot of, I cannot believe that happened. The breaks that they've gotten, right, with Pittsburgh losing last night, with, Tank Dell going down for the year, with, Denver losing, with just a lot of these teams. If you look at the wild card picture right now, if I had to go to the wild card picture, it is Cleveland, Indianapolis, Houston. Come on.
And Denver.
Well, those are the three in, and then you have Denver sitting right there.
Is Houston in right now? I thought Houston's on the outside.
In because of the Pittsburgh loss.
Oh, because Pittsburgh lost last night. Yeah. Pittsburgh is going to loss. They're obviously they're gone in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, Trubisky is just painful. This is, to me, feels like the Buffalo path. We beat Kansas City, and everyone says on Monday, Buffalo's back. Your thoughts?
Mm-hmm.
You think?
Yeah, I think. Obviously, this is a win or go home game for the Bills. If the Bills lose this game, the season's over. So a lot on the line there. I think so, because then you're playing Dallas the week after
at home.
And then you have two easier games. I think they're playing the Chargers and then the Patriots. And then they wrap up week 17. They're playing the Dolphins in Miami.
Who could not be playing in that game? Who knows with buys and
right. They might be sitting guys in that game. Who knows what's going on? And by the way, I'm pretty high on what Miami's building right now. I know the competitor thing is an argument. They haven't really beaten a real team, but we can talk about them in a little bit. Yeah, this is the game right here. And honestly, it's a very critical game for Kansas City too. I mean, how do you lost to the Packers, man? I mean, this Chiefs team is a different one, Levy. They're a team that I still look at as a legitimate Super Bowl contender because of Patrick Mahomes. You can't rule them out in any game in my mind. But this team has a lack of weapons, and it's really showing. I mean, no receivers that can catch the ball besides Travis Kelce. And finally it's starting to bite them in the butt. They have a really good defense, which really grounds this team in my mind. But I do like Buffalo in this game. I think that the offensive attack looked better than it ever has against Philadelphia. They were balling, and then just Josh Allen can't win in overtime, right? I would say the defense is probably taking a bit of a step back. But this is the game here. Right. This is the game. I still looking at this playoff picture, don't love them to make it in because I'm pretty high on Houston staying there. I think Cleveland has a viable path to the playoffs. And I look at Denver and I think they're going to be competing until the end. And I could see them getting in.
Yeah, Buffalo's more talented than all those teams.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah. And their path is really, hey, can we go 4-1? Because if they go 4-1, 4-1, 5-0, that's how they get in. I still think you look at it just with the trend, it's probably the 7 seeds, a 10-7 team, just with the easy schedules for Indy coming up, for Houston coming up. So I think the winner is at 10-7 as the 7 seed. So they need to go undefeated or have one loss. But Buffalo coming off a bye in a really nice spot here, getting all those breaks. Josh Allen, he's had success in Arrowhead. He has 1 pick and I think like 14 touchdowns I heard earlier today. There is concern with Kansas City, and I think this week especially just because they're hurt, right? they're hurt. So I think this week is tough, especially defensively. They're down on their third linebacker right now with Tranquil getting hurt in that game as well versus Green Bay. So I think that was part of the reason they didn't really have their defense set. I think as a contender, I still buy in. I'm still going to buy in because I think they're saving Kelsey. I think they're purposely not putting him in situations where he'd get hit over the middle. I think Rashid Rice had found something in that Vegas game, and I still think he could be a guy. We've seen this team step up with pretty similar receiving core last year. So it's not like they haven't done this before. And then, of course, that defense. Nick Bolton coming back will help them. And I just look at this AFC picture. I'm not a believer in Miami in the playoffs because I don't know if they can compete in that type of game. And we saw when Kansas City and Miami faced off this year, who won that game? Oh, Kansas City by a touchdown, and they were pretty much in control. Baltimore can't really close out games. I still think it's probably those two, Baltimore and Kansas City, but you can't, even with a loss this week, which I think they probably lose, in my opinion, just because of Buffalo's situation, they still have the talent, and they'll get pieces back, and they'll get Kelsey going in the playoffs, and they still have Mahomes and Andy Reid, and they did it last year, so I'm still buying in KC in the playoffs.
Yeah, I like that. And I think home field's going to be big in this AFC playoffs, right? If the playoffs run through Arrowhead, it's always a completely different story. And I think out of any of these quarterbacks, I would take Mahomes as the guy who could go in on the road and upset people. But I think if the playoffs run through Miami, I think we're talking a totally different story. The Dolphins on their home field are a pretty strong team. When it's hot and they just kind of burn out the other people on their sidelines. They're the only team in the NFL. They have it structured. So they essentially roast the other team on their sidelines. And people, just heat exhaustion really sets in there. But the way Miami's playing football, the way Jalen Ramsey has come back into the system, and I don't know if you're watching Hard Knocks right now.
I haven't. I need to watch. Everyone's been saying to watch it. Is it awesome?
Watch the way that McDaniel is the guy there, and the way he controls that locker room. Mike McDaniel is the absolute man. I've never seen quite a coach like him, and the way they've obviously utilized Tyreek Hill. I was watching all the doubter videos today of saying, "Oh, the Tyreek Hill doesn't make this team a contender," but he truly does. He truly does, and that's why I think him in the MVP conversation is not crazy at all. Not crazy at all. I mean, who's your favorite right now? Is it Prescott?
It probably is. So my thinking is if they win this week, right? If Prescott Sunday night moves the ball, I don't care how bad the Eagles are. If they get the win this week, it feels like it's his to lose. He's right now currently the favorite plus 300 along with Brock Purdy, which is insane. Hurts at 350, but he's hurt, right? If Hurts has that miraculous game this week, then he probably jumps to the front, but he's hurt right now. Then you have Mahomes and Tua, 700, 750, Lamar, 800, who hasn't been great, right? And then Tyreek Hill, 1,200.
That Baltimore defense, though, man, and they'll keep them in every game. I really think that.
It'll be an interesting, next couple weeks. I think with Miami, they haven't proven it to me yet. It's just they lost Phillips, right, with that Achilles, which was against the Jets, which is terrible. And I love their defense. But losing Phillips, I think, is a big loss. And until they can prove, against a good team with a good pass rush that they can protect Tua, then I'll buy in. But they haven't played a good team. We don't know when Tua's healthy and he has no one around him, he can just chuck it for days. He's got Tyreek Hill, he's got Jalen Waddle. Things change when he has to go up against these great defenses, these great pass rushers. Number one, Chris Jones. He's going to have to go up against him. Look at what Baltimore's doing, getting after the quarterback with Jadeveon Clowney, and I don't even know how to pronounce his name. Owa, I think is his name on the other side.
Yeah, Owa. Yep.
And then you got Von Miller coming back for Buffalo. So there's these teams, Josh Allen of Jacksonville. Let me see Tua protected against those guys. That's my thoughts.
And it'll be interesting to see. So their next two games, kind of jokes. You have Tennessee and then the Jets. Right. But then the way they finish out their season, and if we're
that's
talking
when we'll
about,
know.
That's when we'll know. And if we're talking about competing for home field advantage, they might be playing their starters in all three of these games. Because they could be competing for the bye. So they got the Cowboys at home, and then they're going on the road to face Baltimore and then finish out the season hosting Buffalo. I mean, that's the test right there. Three or at least two legitimate contenders and Buffalo, who we know is very talented. That's where Miami will show us. But I am a believer. I really am a believer this year. And like you said, a lot of it kind of centers around what they're doing defensively right now. I think they've really settled into their identity as a defense. And we know the offensive upside on this team. And if they can start getting that HN, Raheem Mostert, what's my word? What am I looking for? That chemistry, that Montgomery Jahmyr Gibbs type vibe, but even better. That's a better duo in my mind. Get that going. And obviously, Tyreek, Waddle. I mean, Tua has the keys to the Millennium Falcon here. He's got a fantastic set of weapons and a coach who is smart enough to know how to utilize them.
Yeah. So we'll know about Miami, right? When they play Micah Parsons, Jadeveon Clowney, Von Miller in those last 3 games. I want to move to Baltimore here because this week they're home, right? We don't know really that offense. They kind of struggled versus the Chargers, who don't have a great defense when they didn't have Mark Andrews. Now they get a week off. They reset things, and now they host the Rams. The last 2 times they've played an NFC team at home in a big spot. Seattle, Detroit, blew them out twice. The Rams on a 3-game win streak. It feels like they're making a run here. Do you see the Rams hanging around with Baltimore, or do you see Baltimore kind of laying the hammer once again?
Laying the hammer. I believe in what they're doing over there, and I think every time the Ravens have had to step up this season, they've had these statement games, right? They're playing Detroit on October 22nd, I think it was, and people were like, "Oh, this is the game to watch. Let's see what Detroit can do against Baltimore's defense." 38-6, Baltimore wins that game. Seattle comes to town, 37-3, right? Whenever they need to lay the hammer, they lay the hammer. They lost a close game to the Browns a couple weeks ago, 33-31. But I think the Rams are fun. Love to see the story of Puka Nacua. Love to see what they're doing over there. Cooper Kupp kind of fading into the night, we might say. I don't know. We could hear your thoughts on that. To get Kyron Williams was huge for this offensive unit. To get him back, I think he really changes how they play football. And McVay has found a way to keep his team relevant. But I don't see this game being close. I see it being at least a 10-point margin of victory for the Ravens.
Yeah, what do you think? I agree. I think it's Baltimore at home, and the big concern is what do they do without Mark Andrews? The bye week, I think, helps because I just trust their coaching staff. John Harbaugh, Mike McDonald, my boy from Michigan, he's in the running for a head coaching job, I think, this cycle. What Todd Monken has done with that offense, another week of getting more reps, another week of learning the offense, right? It's been a slow progression, but it's been a progression. And Lamar getting a chance to kind of figure it out. The receivers getting healthier, right? OBJ a little banged up, Zay Flowers a little banged up. They get healthier over that bye week. This feels like a spot where they kind of let things go. If you can take the 14 plus, if you can take the -20, there's a similar, because the Rams are great against good teams, against pretty bad teams, because they have the quarterback coach advantage usually in those matchups. And what Puka Nacua and Kyron Williams have been doing and creating balance on that offense, I've been very impressed. But they still talent for talent wise on this roster, just don't compete with the Ravens whatsoever. They don't.
Yep. I'm in agreement there. And by the way, the Zay Flowers Lamar chemistry really seemed to have a blooming moment against the Chargers. Played a really good game, and then watching them being interviewed on the sideline after the game, they really have that brotherly love, almost like I look at it as like a CJ Stroud, Tank Dell connection. Lamar doesn't sling it like Stroud does, don't get me wrong.
Whoa, you just said Lamar doesn't. Oh my God.
Okay. You don't think, no, I would take Stroud as a passer over Lamar. Come on. You don't think so?
We'll see.
I mean, Stroud, Levy, I don't think it's an overstatement at this point. Maybe it's a bit of an early reaction, but I just don't want to. I want to get on the bandwagon before it's too late. It's probably already too late. Stroud's going to be a top 5 passer in this league for the next decade and a half. I couldn't be higher on CJ Stroud.
He's going to be great. Not to say he hasn't done it yet. So I just and Lamar is just a special talent.
He hasn't done. I mean, he's leading the league in passing right now.
Let me see him in the playoffs. Let me see.
Let me tell. Yeah. Well, okay. I didn't say he was a great winner. I don't know if he's a great winner yet, but love the guy's attitude. Love the guy's work ethic. The performance on the field has been fantastic so far. Historic for a rookie. D'Amico Ryans is a fantastic coach down there. They're getting better on the defensive side. Look at what Anderson's doing. Look at how Stingley's playing right now. We talk so much about Sauce Gardner in that draft. Stingley went above him, and Stingley's playing really, really good football right now. Houston's so exciting. And then that receiving core, Levy, you talk about Nico Collins, Tank Dell, obviously out for the season now, but he has a bright future. Schultz has been a serviceable tight end there. Noah Brown has had a few big games. Stroud knows how to utilize his weapons.
Yeah, Stroud, when you have that quarterback working, it is awesome. It is awesome. And this week will be a test versus, I think, the Jets, just because of how good that passing defense is with Sauce, Jay Reed, and Carter in the slot. Like, they're an excellent pass defensive team.
Mm-hmm.
Stroud hasn't faced that. I know Denver's a pretty good defense, but this is, I think, a whole nother level. And the D'Amico Ryans, Robert Saleh factor will be fun to watch as well. So how does he have success, especially without Tank Dell, will be key this week. Just to quickly wrap this up, though, Miami, Baltimore, I think are the two teams vying for the 1 seed right now if Kansas City loses. They play each other. Other. Week 17, December 31st, New Year's Eve, 1 p.m. in Baltimore. I think Baltimore wins that game, and they become the 1 seed.
I think Miami wins that game. Not just saying it to be contrarian. Again,
you love Miami.
I'll be excited to see how Tua plays against Baltimore's defense. I mean, I think that's a really good evaluation for me. That will tell me a lot about what Tua is, because I feel like it is a game where he could decompose. But I see it as being a high scoring one. And I think that Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle are too much. What was the score of the game when they played last time? Because it came down to the last.
When they came back, right?
It was week 2 of last year, and I think Miami won the game. Yeah, in
38.
Yeah. But again, I think Miami's firing on all cylinders right now. And this will, but again, the criticism is, and we know it, they haven't put a complete game together against a real legitimate team. So they got their chance. We'll see. That's a great game, December 31st.
Can I read you their schedule since the Buffalo game?
Please do.
They got the Giants. They beat them. They beat the Panthers. They lost to the Eagles. They beat the Pats. They lost to the Chiefs. They beat the Raiders. They beat the Jets. They beat the Commanders. They're the Cowboys of the NFC, of the AFC right now.
They lost to every quality team and beat every bad team. I mean, that's what it is. But it's so, Levy, it's so weird because you watch them play against these bad teams and the way they mangle them, you think they have to compete against good teams. And sometimes they do look like a fundamentally different team. Against Philadelphia, I did not like the Miami Dolphins that I saw. It just didn't look quite competitive enough.
A chain was hurt, right? Waddle was hurt in that game.
Waddle was like in and out of that game, I think, with a back. HN was not active. So I mean, there were some injuries, but I don't think this offense revolves around Devon HN. I think when they're firing on all cylinders, he's an important part. But they have enough guys, not just even Raheem Mostert. They've got Ahmed. They've got Jeff Wilson. I mean, I don't look at this offense as that they could survive with most running backs in the backfield in my mind. And Mike McDaniel loves speed guys. He loves guys who can kind of run around the formation, pre-snap movement. And I think all of these guys can do it. It really comes down to what will Tua do if teams figure out Tyreek Hill, a way to contain him. So far, really nobody has, right? But if teams are finding a way to have a safety over the top on Tyreek Hill that's really containing him for some reason, will Tua be able to go to that second read? And if that second read is Jalen Waddle, like this guy is having a down season numbers wise from where he was last season. There's no talent regression in my mind. I think he's still creating the same separation. I've been watching a lot of Jalen Waddle film because it's kind of like a what's going on situation here. I don't think anything's different. I think it's just Tyreek Hill is so dang good that why would Tua not throw it to him? But in big moments, Jalen Waddle might have to step up for this team.
Second read, right? The pressure closes in a little bit. Smaller guy, doesn't move well outside the pocket. That's where we're going to know. And if there's a team that we're going to know it against, it's Baltimore, because they got all those safeties. They got Kyle Hamilton. They have Geno Stone, Williams. They have all these Humphrey. They have a plethora of defensive backs. That will be the game. Those receivers, those speedsters, and that offensive and that defensive line versus Tua and that offense. It'll be so fun to watch. And that will be maybe, possibly, potentially for the number 1 seed. That'll be fun. Be fun.
Exciting stuff.
We forgot to hit on this. Eagles, Cowboys. Our two least favorite teams are in action. You know, It's not going to be fun to watch for me, at least. I don't want to see Dak versus Jalen. I hate it. But it's great for football. And as a non-Giant fan in this way and viewing this game, the advantage feels like with Dallas. Right, this is their game. This is their game to prove to everyone. Sunday Night Football, Mike Tirico, Chris Collinsworth at home, AT&T Stadium. You competed with them till the end last time when you played Philly and you came up just short. This is the game for them to win and to dominate, right? To show the world the Cowboys are back to being legit Super Bowl contenders. And the Eagles, right, they've had these highs each and every week. So the advantage is with the Cowboys. But the infrastructure with Philly knowing how to win and Dallas not knowing how to win, with the Mike McCarthy appendix story that has come out, he's expected to coach, but still a little bit of turmoil with your coach not being there in practice. Is there a world, because I think I tend to like the teams that know how to win. I think there's a world where the Eagles keep this close right till the end, and the Cowboys can't figure out a way to win, and we sit there on Monday saying, why do we buy into the Cowboys? They're the good, bad team.
It would almost be an identity crisis for me if the Cowboys looked uncompetitive in this game. If the Cowboys did not come out and give an excellent performance and honestly win the game, I think I'd have a lot to look on right now because I think Dak Prescott is the MVP of the league. I think that this is a different Dallas team since they got blown out by San Francisco on Sunday Night Football. That was the divide for me because after that game, if you look at CeeDee Lamb's first 4 games, because I think that was week 4, week 5. Unimpressive. Unimpressive numbers, right?
Week 5.
Looked out of sync with Dak, complaining on the sideline, saying this is not working. We have Richard Sherman coming on to Undisputed and saying CeeDee Lamb is not a true number 1 receiver. The disrespect that's circulating around this Oklahoma talent. Since then, unreal. The Cowboys have been really, really good. They lost to the Eagles, like we said. That was, I believe, that's the only game they lost since then. They lost to Philadelphia. And that was a really close game, 28-23. So I don't like the narrative that the Cowboys can't compete with legitimate teams. And then, the Seahawks are not a pushover team. They beat them 41-35 at home. The Cowboys are also a different team at home. Dak Prescott's a different quarterback at home. I mean, look at his passing numbers. The splits are awesome. I mean, or maybe not awesome is the right word, but the splits are incredible. When he's at home, this guy's throwing for 300 yards. I'm really confident in where this team's at right now. I like the way that now he's not so reliant upon CeeDee Lamb. Brandon Cooks is reestablishing himself as a legitimate receiver in that system. Like the way they're using Ferguson there. They've been, again, it almost seems like, so they got Rico and they got Pollard there in that backfield. Pollard has not been the guy we know. It almost seems like Cowboys always can only find the ultimate success with their change of pace running back. That's why Rico's stealing some of those carries, but Pollard has looked better in the last couple of weeks. And I mean, this defense, a top 5 defensive unit in the NFL, so strong. They've better offense and a better defense than Philadelphia in my mind. So I don't see why Dallas wouldn't win this game.
Interesting.
Do you disagree with that?
Yeah, no, there's advantages across the board for Dallas. I do have concern about their defense because their defense has not really been tested. They haven't been since, that injury to Trayvon Diggs. They just, if you look at their schedule, they've played the Giants, Panthers, Commanders. The last time, right, they played the Chargers. Fine. They're not great either. They played San Francisco. They let up 42 points. Eagles 28 points, and then Seahawks 35 points. Those are the real teams they've played, and they've given up points.
Well, San Francisco, Dak also threw 3 picks, I think. And
yeah, that's fair, but they still.
San Francisco was a mess of a game.
We'll throw out San Francisco. Since then, they still have let up points. Like Seattle doing that to them.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't the Eagles' offensive line? They still have Lane Johnson. They still have Jason Kelsey, Mailata. They're still an excellent offensive line. They still protected pretty well last week. If they can protect Jalen Hurts and he's a little bit healthier, that'll be the question. If they can block that pass rush, I think there's ways to attack this Cowboys defense in the back end. The issue is there's a lot more ways to attack the Eagles defense, and that's really where it comes down. I think it's a higher scoring game, but it might just be, right, there's just too many matchup advantages, and the spot here for Dallas, extra week, at home, the way Dak has been playing, what they're playing for, this might be just too much advantages towards Dallas, but I do think it's a game where Dallas doesn't just run away with it and people all sell their stock on Philly. Philly's still a really good team, and they'll be ready to go for this one, I think.
Well, like you said, what's interesting, I mean, Dallas has an elite pass rush. They're a really good defense overall. And like you said, yeah, without Trayvon Diggs, but they have Bland, has 6 interceptions now, 5 pick sixes. What's the number? Yeah,
I think it is 5 pick sixes.
Although that was a classic Trayvon Diggs game that Bland had the other night, letting up 1,000,000 yards to DK Metcalf, and then has his 1 interception, then a crucial part of the game, and everybody's talking about, oh, there he is again, defensive player of the year. I think that's the classic.
Diggs. It really is Diggs. I mean, it's amazing.
What was the year that Diggs led the league in picks? He also gave up 1,000,000 yards. I mean, these guys are ball hawks. They're looking for the big play. I'd much rather have a cornerback like Sauce who shuts a guy down. But anyway, so I do think Jalen Hurts, even playing hurt with the urgency of this game, the kind of competitor that he is, the kind of winner that I believe Jalen Hurts to be, will find ways to get through this Cowboys defense. And like you said, again, it's weird. The unit's really good, but they do give up points. I mean, giving up 35 points to Seattle is concerning in a game where Dak wasn't really turning over the football. That was on the defense for giving up those points. But the Eagles, the biggest step back they've taken this year, they've taken steps back on both fronts, is defensively. And I could see Dak Prescott absolutely torching this defense. And like you said, this is the game where Dak Prescott steps up and says, hey, NFL, screw the matchups, screw the narratives, screw the classic Dak can't win the big game. I am the MVP. And I think that's what we're going to see on Sunday.
Yeah, it does. It feels like that. Until I see it, then I'll believe it. If I had to bet, I think Dallas wins this game just because of the matchup advantages that we were talking about and the way Ferguson and Cooks are playing. But there's always the team that hasn't won yet. Those Pittsburgh, New England years when Pittsburgh was I just watched this, when Pittsburgh was so close, they felt like the better team. They're at home. They're in the big spot, but New England just found a way to win. That's what the Eagles do. Aside from that San Francisco game, who could be just on a completely different level, the Eagles know how to win. And when you're playing a team that doesn't know how to win, there's concern. If it's down in the final 2 minutes, who you trusting, Mike McCarthy or Nick Sirianni? Jalen Hurts or Dak Prescott historically? There's your issue.
Do you think the Niners are going to run away with the NFC, or do you see Dallas or Philadelphia competing with them?
I think the Niners get to the Super Bowl if they're healthy. I think they do. I think there's one team, and I said this past week, there's one team that can compete with them. It's Baltimore, just because of those defensive backs. And I think the way they can present pressure on the right side, they can pressure you and they can defend the back end, right? Philly at times could pressure, but they couldn't defend. Baltimore knows how to defend, and their offense is uniquely built to kind of challenge the Niners pass rush, because when you have a running quarterback and you have a dominant run game, the pass rush doesn't get home. They also have a great offensive line, Baltimore. So I think they're the only team that can really compete with the Niners when healthy, I think, is Baltimore. That would be my opinion. But I do think they are the best team in the NFC by a mile if healthy. You?
Yes, on paper. But there's just something in me. There's just this little voice on my shoulder. I don't know if I should listen to it. That really says this Philly Dallas, this is spicy. There's nothing more than I'd like to see than a Philly Dallas NFC championship. I have to tell you, right? I know.
I mean, saying that as a Giants fan,
I know people get so mad at me, but the vitriol between these two teams and what I think they're both capable of. I mean, I do think this is the perfect time to sell your stock on Philly, right? Or I mean, not in the buy low, sell high theory. But this is a time where a lot of people will start selling their stock on Philly. They just got crushed by the Niners. The injury to Hurts, just kind of a general step back. But still, again, like you said, great offensive line, good units around, good coaching. You have a winner at quarterback. You have great weapons on this team. I'm not out on them. But I really think, I look at this NFC, and I think if there was a year that Dallas makes it out,
it's this year.
I think it's this year. I really do. And again, if the Niners are healthy, they're really hard to beat. I don't know if they've ever lost a game when they've had Debo,
they have not.
and Trent Williams all in the same game. However, there are plenty of games where they don't have those guys all in at the same game. Debo been known to deal with some injuries. McCaffrey, same thing. You know, Trent Williams, you hope he can stay healthy. Obviously, putting a big load on his plate. So I look at it and I think that the Niners are not an unbeatable football team. And certainly if they lose one of those guys, they'll lose. It always felt like that Philly game was like the wash game. It was the overtime. They just beat the Bills, right? They were, how many games? They were 2 games ahead of the Niners in the race. It always felt like a game that the Niners wanted more than Philadelphia. And they came out and they proved that game. I'm not saying that Philadelphia didn't want to win that football game, but it always felt like a Niners game there in Philly for me. I'd be really interested to see if the Niners had to go to Dallas and play the Cowboys in the playoffs, how that game would unfold. And I'm not so sure San Francisco comes out on top.
Well, currently San Francisco would have the edge, right, in that tiebreaker in terms of
right now. But
well, do you see them losing is the question? Because then if they don't lose, and Dallas somehow wins that division, and they win this week, the game is in San Francisco. And we saw
I think the game that they could lose is Baltimore on Christmas. That's going to be a great game.
It's going to be a great game, but you think they lose?
No, I'm not saying I think they lose. I'm saying if they were to lose, because do I see a loss against the Cardinals, Commanders, or Rams? Probably not. But both teams sit at 9-3 right now. Eagles are at 10-2. So, I mean, if Dallas wins this week, things get pretty crazy because then you've got 3 teams at 10-3, probably with Niners with the edge, right? Because they've got head-to-head. So, I don't know, Levy. I don't rule the Cowboys out if the Niners play at home. I don't rule them out in that case either. But I will admit that right now, how could you not say the Niners are the favorite to come out of the NFC?
Yeah, they're clearly right now the best team in football. I mean, the way
I agree.
Last week,
top to bottom, 100%.
Yeah. So, all right, before we end this off, I want to hear, and I'll give you mine after, AFC and NFC championship, and then your Super Bowl and then Super Bowl winner. I'm putting you on the spot. It's a big ask. Wow. Can you do it?
Wow. Okay. AFC championship. Miami and Baltimore.
No, Kansas City. Wow.
My AFC championship. No. I think if there was a year that Kansas City gets dismissed early from these playoffs, it's this year. I wonder if they'll match up because it seems inevitable that one of the divisional games will be Kansas City versus either Miami or Baltimore, unless some we'll see how it shakes out. But I'm going to go Miami, Baltimore. Riding with the Fins. I am riding with the Fins to win that game, and I know that's a bold prediction.
Is that game in Miami?
That game's in Miami, in my mind.
They beat them twice, is your thoughts? It's interesting.
Well, and the first game's in Baltimore, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Yep. I stand there.
Stands by it.
And then we have my NFC championship is Dallas and San Francisco. Yeah, I mean, I know I'm contrarian, but I'm taking Dallas in that game. What's crazy is, I mean, Purdy's given me no reason to not believe in him. He's looked great. He's really looked great. And I think they found their guy. But I believe in Dak this year. I really do. And I believe in the weapons that they have. And good luck to that Dallas defense trying to slow down San Francisco. But I think that game, I really think that week 5 game was not the way this matchup shakes out. You know, if you play 5 more times, I think that was kind of the anomaly there. And otherwise, these teams would be competing pretty close neck and neck. So give me a Dallas-Miami Super Bowl. And your 2024 Super Bowl champions, the Miami Dolphins.
Oh, so you have the teams. You are betting on the teams, you know, that have beaten the bad teams. They've blown out. They've looked good. They're the Mike Tysons, as Colin Cowherd likes to say, of the NFL. One from the AFC, one from the NFC. You think those 2 teams, Miami and Dallas, that is interesting.
But I think what's dangerous about that narrative, right, is that just like we can discount big wins. Sometimes a big loss in the regular season might not mean all that much. I'm excited to see. Now we're talking about these games that really, really matter coming down the line. I'm excited to see how these guys compete. And I could be completely wrong. And sure, if I wanted to really like pick with my analytical mind, the numbers would tell me it's probably 49ers Baltimore. I don't know if that's going to be your pick, right?
Good hand.
But I'm picking a little bit with my heart here. And I just see down the line that these teams can make some noise in the playoffs. And I believe they have the talent. They have the talent to step up in those big moments. And boy, do I believe what they're building in Miami is legit.
Very interesting. Very interesting. All right, I'll give you mine. I think this week for Kansas City, I talked about the importance for Buffalo. It's also huge for Kansas City. I don't want to discount that because they cannot lose. They are the team that would be necessary for them if they can get the 1 seed, right? They can get that home field, that bye. They're my Super Bowl favorite of the AFC. But I think they lose this week, and they are now, then they would trail by 2 games to Miami and Baltimore, which puts really the 1 seed out of reach. So I think without Kansas City getting that bye, without them getting the home field advantage, this becomes much tougher for them, right? On the road, I don't know if that offense can hold up against a Baltimore or a Miami. I do think, however, they get to the AFC Championship game. Kansas City will travel to Baltimore for the AFC Championship. And as you said, I like Baltimore. And I have this in my Thanksgiving. I do a Thanksgiving bowl every year with my family. I had Baltimore in Kansas City. And I think Kansas City matches up well with Miami. We saw that matchup before, and I think they would go into Miami and win. That's why I think Kansas City would get to the AFC Championship. But the issue with Baltimore is that run attack and those defensive backs. I just don't know if Mahomes has anywhere to go with the football against Baltimore. And I don't know if Mahomes, the other thing you're seeing in the film is I don't know if he trusts his tackles. So that's the big thing. Taylor, and they switched those tackles out, right? They had the guy that went, what was his name? The guy that went to Cincinnati, the left tackle.
So it was Taylor, right tackle, and then what is his name?
He got paid $20 million, and they were the best pass protecting team in football last year. That was part of the reason why Mahomes had more time to find those weapons, to give Scantling that extra second, to give Tony that extra second. I don't think he has that this year. Do you know who it is?
I'm checking it out right now. Go on. I'll find the name.
But in that spot, that's when it becomes tough, right? It becomes tough when the pressure, especially Baltimore's pressure, gets after you. So I think Baltimore beats Kansas City in the AFC Championship. In the NFC Championship, I have in this spot, I have the same NFC Championship as you. I think it's San Francisco and Dallas. Too many issues with Philly. In this situation where I have Dallas winning tomorrow night, or excuse me, 2 nights from now, they would get the division, and Philly, if they were to win the first round against Atlanta, which I think they would, or Tampa Bay or New Orleans, they would have to go to San Francisco, and we saw that matchup. I think it's way too much San Francisco. So it would be San Francisco hosting Dallas, and we saw that matchup. I just think San Francisco right now, as I said, they're the team. They're the team. I think they win out for the regular season. They beat Baltimore on Christmas, and they get a rematch. It's San Francisco and Baltimore, and your 2024 champion, as I outlined before, are the Baltimore Ravens, because they are the only team. They're the only team to match up with San Francisco. They are the only team with those defensive backs, and they're going to see them on Christmas. So they're going to get a little taste of it. That will help them. Mark Andrews could be back for that game. That'll be another wrinkle as well. I think Lamar, Todd Monken, what they're doing, I think it's going to be a nice linear trajectory. Give me Baltimore over San Francisco in the Super Bowl.
Wow. I thought you were building towards San Francisco there for sure to win it all.
Pick the easy one. Come on. Everyone could pick San Francisco.
Sure. Well, and not a lot of people pick Miami, so there you go. I'm drawing far outside of the lines right now.
I just get concerned when you see a team look so good for so many weeks. Can they match up against a really good pass rush? And if a team takes away Tyreek Hill, I don't know. We're going to see. And
that's the beauty of it all.
It's the beauty of it all. All right, Jonah, that was awesome. We went pretty long there. So thank you for coming on. Appreciated it. We'll get it up. YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. We'll get it everywhere. We'll put it everywhere. But what a week 14, it is going to be Chiefs, Bills, Jim, Tony, right into Eagles, Cowboys. I can't wait. Jonah, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Pleasure as always.